This meeting is going to run for approximately an hour, so we should be done by about 10 o'clock. If any partners want to stay on, SUBS Altrincham Partners, they can do. And if anyone else wants to stay and has any questions for any partners, you're equally welcome to hang around, and I'll try and put you in some breakout groups accordingly. We are going to break out and go into some little bit of networking to see who you know and who you don't. So quite simply, to do that, we are going to have a bit of a talking point. So I am just going to spotlight my video, hopefully, so you can see me. And the talking point for today is when you go into your meeting rooms, tell us what food or restaurant you are most looking forward to have or to go to after the lockdown. So there's a question for you. What food or restaurant are you most looking forward to having or going to after the lockdown? All right. So we're going to be in breakout groups for about 15 minutes. And when we do that, literally there'll be a timer on the screen. I'm going to break you up into groups of 4. This is the networking part. If you've not really done online networking before, it's painless, but obviously you'll see the time in the corner. If everyone has a few minutes to speak, make sure everybody has a voice, please. And I might dip in and out of a few of the rooms. Okay, as we get everyone back in the room, which I think we have got everybody now, obviously we're going to go on to our learning point of the day. I hope you've shared some wonderful restaurants and things going on. Alex, yeah, a few people have mentioned Ankersol in Altrincham that's closed down, but what a shame. I think I've only been there once, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. Right, we're going to move on to today's today's discussion kind of point and what have you. And we've got a few of our partners who are going to introduce themselves. So I've got them in no particular order, and I will spotlight them as they come up. So bear with me. And we'll just go back. And it's really about things to make you feel better at this time, what's new in industry and everything. So a slightly different angle on things. And I am going to end with you, Susan Lee, because I want to come back to you. But Daniel Bell, where are you? I'm going to unmute you and spotlight you, Daniel, so everyone can see you. So really, it's what's happening. So introduce yourself anyway, and then tell us what's happening in the world of mortgages.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel. I'm a mortgage and protection advisor. My company is Bell Financial Solutions, based in Altrincham. The world of mortgages at the moment. So it's a little different to sort of the days of 2007, 2008, when there was the recession for banks, building societies and lenders, because it's not the banks that are in trouble this time. The world of mortgages, lenders, like I say, aren't in trouble. At the moment, lenders are still prepared to lend and are lending. Up until about 2 weeks ago, all the lenders sort of put everything on hold, but they were merely putting things on hold because they were having to deal with the sheer volume of people requesting payment holidays. As I'm sure a lot of you will know, the government introduced a scheme that everyone can apply to their mortgage lender if they're in financial, if they need to apply for financial aid of a 3-month mortgage break. And due to that, a lot of the banks and building societies had to divert their resources to managing the extra volume of calls that they would be taking. Along with that, obviously, the banks and building societies were having to take people out of their normal call centres, etc., to adhere to social distancing. So 2 weeks ago, it looked like that the mortgage lending was going to halt. And since that time, the lenders have opened up and have started lending again, which is great. From a remortgage point of view, people that are needing to remortgage because they might be coming to the end of the deal, or they want to restructure their financing, whether that be because their financial circumstances have changed, or they just would have naturally. Lenders are now doing that, and they are able to do that with the result of desktop or automated valuations. And people that were in the process of moving house, again, applications that were put on hold, whether they were towards the end of that process and nearly ready to go, they can still continue, subject to them being able to adhere to social distancing rules. And those people that are still looking, lenders are still prepared to look at applications for those that are maybe looking at investments, investment properties to buy. Again, as long as they're adhering to social distancing rules. So this time around, it's probably the banks and building societies that are going to help the economy recover when we come out of lockdown, as opposed to them being the ones that caused the problem, so to speak, in 2007, 2008. All the lenders are open to offering payment holidays, and as of Tuesday this week, there was 1.6 million people in the United Kingdom that had asked for a payment holiday that had been granted.
Okay, quick question for you, please, Daniel.
Yeah.
Payment holidays, they aren't really just a break from paying. It adds it on to the end of the mortgages, doesn't it?
Correct. So every lender is doing it in a different way. So you can it will either be deferred to the end of the mortgage, where you'll have an extra 3 months worth of payments, or lenders will charge you the extra interest, and then at the end of the 3 month period, your payments will then be calculated accordingly. It's also worthy to note as well that people shouldn't just assume that they can just stop making payments for 3 months. You do have to apply for the payment holiday, so you do have to call your lender and ask for it. If you stop making your payments, that would be just a breach of your mortgage agreement with your lender and result in missed payments, etc. It's also worthy to note that payment holidays aren't automatically granted on all buy-to-let mortgages. The scheme is mainly for residential mortgages.
Good to know, good to know. Right, thank you very much, Daniel, for sharing that with everyone here. I've asked everyone if they want to submit a question for Daniel or anyone, then obviously put it in the chat. We just have one from Becky. Daniel, any idea how valuations will be impacted, and what would a drop in value mean for the mortgage amount being lent?
Is this on residential? Well, I'll answer for both.
It is residential, I believe.
Valuations, physical valuations aren't happening at all. And when the lockdown period was announced on that Monday evening, as of the Tuesday, they all said, right, we're not lending now because we can't do physical valuations. However, since then, lenders have now started to adapt to do desktop valuations or automated valuation models, so taking data from a variety of sources to look at conducting a valuation in that way. And as a result, each lender will look at their risk criteria. So they might say that we will do applications up to a certain loan to value, or that they will only look at applications that are houses as opposed to apartments or lower risk type properties. And the second part of the question was, what would a drop in value mean for the mortgage amount being lent? Again, it depends on for each lender. With a desktop valuation or an automated valuation model, it could potentially mean that you're not going to get the value of the property that it could be worth, depending on how much data is available. And in some cases, it could mean that a valuation can't happen at all because there's not enough information available out there, in which case an application would be put on hold until such time someone could go out and do a physical valuation. And that is the case with some applications that certainly I have in my pipeline, and a lot of people will have out there at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. Right, we're going to move on to our next speaker. We are going to, if I can find him, have Jed join us. Where are you, Jed? Is he with us? Is he with us? He is there. Right, I'm going to unmute you and spotlight you, Jed, so that everyone can see you again. Jed, it's really, in these uncertain times, how can someone's insurance broker help them? So obviously you are our insurance broker. So how have you been helping people?
Right. Okay. Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. Sorry I was a bit late joining. It's a very, very sort of holistic question. Every single person, individual, business owner, business will have its own unique set of circumstances and its own set of concerns and own set of interests. And the insurance sector as a whole are trying to be supportive in many ways. And in some areas, they're succeeding better than others. We've had an awful lot of our clients, for instance, contacting us with regards to whether their general insurance covers business interruption due to the pandemic. And unfortunately, in the vast majority of cases, it doesn't. But insurers are trying to help in individuals and small businesses in ways such where people who are now having forced to work at home, insurers are being a bit flexible on that, because normally insurers would want to know about things like that. And they understand that people are having to work at home. There are questions about perhaps company property being taken into their home, so laptops and such, for instance. It's important that the business insurance covers it as opposed to perhaps the household policy, because it's a business tool, and again, it would have to be agreed with insurers. Insurers are trying to be pretty relaxed with regards to motor insurance, or allowing people to volunteer and help with deliveries and things like that, food and volunteering for the volunteering scheme the government introduced. They've tried to be helpful in that area. So again, that they've got quite a loose way that they're considering those risks. They're giving a little bit of breathe time for people whose MOTs on their motor insurance has perhaps run out. Now, obviously, it's important the vehicle is still roadworthy. But if you haven't been able to MOT your car because all the garages are closed, insurers have stated, or their public have stated, they'll give a little bit of flexibility there. An awful lot of people are concerned about their travel insurance. Again, insurers have tried to be accommodating in cover that was arranged prior to the pandemic and give some scope of cover. Of course, since the pandemic arose, insurers have tightened the strings on it quite a bit, and any new cover that you may try and arrange won't have any pandemic cover. But they've tried to be supportive within the constraints that they can, in order to make certain there's an insurance industry still there after this crisis ends. But as I come back to my original point, everybody will have their own specific concern or question about insurance. So it's difficult just to give an overall general answer that will satisfy people. They will have their own specific comments. And I would say, if anybody in this session today or independently, if they want to just contact me, I'm happy to try and give some general advice or some reassurance or some guidance, just to help them with whatever their individual set of circumstances may be. That's it, Dave.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jed. Again, if anyone's got any questions, put them in there. Obviously, someone's made the comment, Jed, you are the soul man. And obviously, I think we would all agree with that. Obviously, I'm going to be circulating all the partners' details to everyone who's attended this morning's meeting anyway. So you'll have those details and Jed's details if you want to make contact. And we're going to move on to Jill Bottomley now. So I'm going to unmute you and spotlight your video, Jill. Jill and I did an impromptu video recording yesterday and answered a lot of questions about furlough, didn't we, Jill?
We did.
So it's really, very good. So if you're not already liking or have been on SUBS Business Events Facebook page, it is facebook.com/SUBS Business Events. And the interview is on there. It's a good 25 minutes and it's really good if you want really detailed furlough information. But what's the latest, Jill?
It's Friday. And if the Chancellor releases any further updates on a Friday night that's happened for the last few weeks, I'm going to scream. That's the honest opinion. No, we've had 2 updates over this week. It is changing. For those who are familiar with the retention scheme, it's now in its 4th iteration. And I mean, literally it's being developed and made up as we go along. These things would have taken months normally to develop. The big news this week, for those that aren't aware, is that the date has now been changed for the qualification date. So originally it was the 28th of February. There were many people, many of our clients included, who had employees they took on in the first week of March that wouldn't have qualified. So the announcement yesterday or the day before was that that date is now going to go to the 19th of March, which is the day before the Chancellor announced the job retention scheme. So great in principle, certainly for those who are weekly paid, then they'll be okay to be furloughed, but many small businesses, if they pay monthly, probably don't process the payroll. Sam, you may have a view on this, until later in the months. And if they haven't processed the payroll or the individual on to do the RTI by the 19th of March, then they won't be eligible to be furloughed. So we're doing a fair bit of campaigning at the moment. I am about this and across the HR department, because what you're able to do in furlough is go backwards. So the government has said an employee can go back to their previous employer, which, if you actually think about this, it's madness now. I completely understand the risk of fraud, but somebody who has worked with an employer from the 2nd of March can, and if the payroll wasn't run by the 19th, can't be furloughed by their current employer, but they're able to go back to the previous employer to be furloughed. Surely the solution has to be that if they were on another PAYE on the 28th of Feb or prior to joining, they've got a unique NI number. Can't that just be validated and keep the person still in the business they're in? If anybody's affected by this, let me know, because we are trying to get some momentum going. So that's sort of the headline news, I'd say, for this week in terms of furlough.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Jill. Absolutely perfect. So I'm going to then move straight on to Samit. I've just got to find you on my screen, Samit. Give us a wave. Where are you? Oh, there you go. Brilliant. All right, and spotlight video. Okay, Samit, obviously accountants, HR people have all been very busy, but claiming furlough, can people expect their accountants to do that? And what's the latest from an accountancy point of view?
Good morning. To answer your first question, yes, your accountant should be able to claim on your behalf if they have been given the authorization to deal for you with the HMRC on your behalf. So they need to have all the authorizations in place already before they put the claim in. If not, then obviously you will have to do it yourself. But again, from what the guidance has been provided to date, it seems quite a straightforward application process. It should not take an individual more than 5 to 10 minutes to do it, because they're asking very straightforward questions like the name and national insurance numbers, the amount that you want to claim, and the period for which you're claiming. The problem will be where we have employers who have multiple employees, because you need to put in the details for each employee individually on the system. That's where the issue is going to be there. You can only upload a combined set of information like on an Excel file if you have more than 100 employees, which I think most of us on this call probably would not have. So that is the only bit, but the information requested is quite straightforward.
Okay.
As of now.
Brilliant. Okay, short and sweet. If you've got any questions for anybody, please put them in the chat and I will pass them on. Thank you, Samit, for that update there. We're going to come to Mr. Alan Hyams now, and I can see you, so I'm unmuting and spotlighting you. And basically, Alan, what practical steps, I mean, there's been so much advice out there, but what practical steps can business owners and freelancers do to protect themselves that perhaps we haven't already heard about?
Yes, thank you. Well, I've been doing some work on this, as you can imagine, and I've run a few workshops with clients, and here are some of the ideas. So what I'm going to talk about for the next couple of minutes is how to plan your way out the other side, or preventing current over free fall. First, we've got to look at where the business is now. What are your key challenges, urgent short-term concerns, And surprisingly, are there any opportunities in this? Some businesses have got a lot more busy and a lot more business, whereas others have just been completely flattened. We need to know where we're going. I mean, your aim for your business 6 months ago was probably very different than what the aim is now. How has that changed?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the scenarios at low, medium, and severe risk? And to look at the risk, we need to think about the PESTEL factors, which is political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal. Make sure all of those are covered and think what the scenarios are if it all goes belly up. And then, of course, it's how. How are we actually going to get to where we want to be? How can we succeed? What happens if we move from medium to severe? What can we do to counterbalance that? So that's looking at the risks. Looking also at growth opportunities. And you might have to pull some cost out. Where are you going to save some money if you need to save some money? And finally, you need to pull all of this together in a plan, a small, neat action plan of things you need to do in the next 30 days. And my advice would be to roll that plan every week so that you're right on top of all the issues and you know what you're going to do. So that, in a nutshell, is my views on how you horrible pandemic. And of course, you need in mind that when we come out of this, we're going to come out very slowly. We're not going to flip a switch and suddenly get back to normal. The new normal could be very different from what was the old normal. Thank you. Of course, anybody got any questions? Please fire away.
Okay, well, Alan, just bear with me 1 second. But it has been said that the PESTEL, where are we? Alex was very PESTEL factors. Obviously, it'd be great if we had more information on that, but we haven't got time to go into great detail. Again, people will have your contact details at the end.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm just going to do that. Jill, I'm just going to spotlight you again very quickly and unmute. I don't know if you've responded to Gary, but he's come up with a question. Obviously, he took someone on the 16th, I'm assuming of March, but didn't put salaries through until March month end. Has he missed the furlough date?
I was multitasking then. I was listening to Alan and typing at the same time. Some great points there, Alan.
Thank you.
No, unfortunately, this is what I was trying to explain before. It's not employed at that date. It's actually whether the payroll was processed. And I would imagine many small businesses won't have put the payroll through until probably the week after the 19th. So Sam, I don't know if you've had any people come to you with that issue, or, you know, generally when you are processing payroll for businesses. I know in my business, I wouldn't put my payroll through until that week after the 19th.
You're right, Jill. So most of our payrolls are processed, especially the monthly ones are processed at the end of the month. So around the 24th, 25th of the month. It's only the weekly payrolls that get processed, obviously on a weekly basis. So most people would lose out on that from that perspective. Yeah,
so there was big headline news about the change in date, but the reality is it won't really have much impact. So all those people, I think several 100,000 people are potentially affected by this. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Right, we're going to move on to Simon Edmondson. Give us a wave, Simon. I can't see dodgy hat. There you go. Unmute you and spotlight you. Quite simply, obviously representing Premium Collections, one of our SUBS partners again. If people are left owing money to you and you're struggling, are there any top tips you can give? And is now the time to get heavy-handed, or do you have to give it a little bit more leniency?
It's a bit of a difficult one, yeah. I think a little bit more leniency. But as Paul would say, the best thing is to speak to your debtors, basically. Because at least if you keep the communication open, they might be willing to pay, you know, a monthly basis. At least something is better than nothing. Yeah, we're here to give advice, but it is basically communication with anybody, really. You know, it's having a chat with them, seeing what they can afford, see what they've got coming in the way of cash flow. Because if they've got nothing coming in, then yes, you could send us in, but we'll just get the same same reply basically. So the key message would be just keep talking to everybody, and also keep talking to your bank and letting them know what's going on, because at least if you have a book of a debt there that you know you're going to get in once things start to getting back to normal, at least you'll have a bit of collateral basically. Yeah, but we're more than happy to have a chat with people and let them know what's going on. But yeah, you know, there is the argument that if you've done the job, why shouldn't you be paid for it? But the worst thing is we don't want somebody going insolvent because of, you know, the amount of debt. At least if we've got an opportunity to collect it when we get back to normal, that's far better.
Okay, brilliant. Right, thank you very much, Simon. Obviously, I won't necessarily go back to Jill. I don't need to answer this specifically, but obviously one of the questions that came in, is it true then even if you're furloughed, you can work elsewhere as a key worker? So NHS, farms, etc. It's been in the news that farmers are desperately short of people agreeing to work in a fruit picking. So are people aware they can do this? So actually, I will come back to you, Jill, if you want to just respond to that very quickly.
Yeah, just as well, multitasking. Well done, Simon. Yes, they can, subject to the current employment contract. So, and it's not just about essential work. Basically, the furlough scheme is now allowing individuals who are furloughed to work for another employer. It cannot be the existing employer on a revenue basis or a volunteer basis or an associate company. But any other company, yes, they can, as long as they're not going to be in breach of the current contract. Now, our contracts we put together would restrict individuals from working from other companies during during normal working time sort of thing. So individuals would need to check with their current employers that they will release them. But importantly, if they are being released to work elsewhere, if the current employer needs them back, maybe somebody's gone sick or new orders have come in, they want to make sure they've got that agreement up front that they can call them back at any time. For the other company taking them on, they need to understand that that can happen as well. So it's important to get these things agreed, because there's likely to be problems down the line where people are on furlough, working elsewhere, and the original company needs them back.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jill, for answering that question. Right. Okay. We've still got one more person who I'd like to hear from. So I've got to find you now, Susan. Right. I'm unmuting you and putting you on the hot seat. So welcome, Susan. What questions, obviously introduce yourself, but what questions are you being asked at the moment? And what's your best bits of advice that are really helping people or resonating with people?
I think the biggest area for a lot of people is the impact of uncertainty. They don't know how long this is going on for. A lot of people are worried about the implications career-wise, business-wise, the social impact of not being able to go out and do anything that is remotely normal. So relationships are struggling because a lot of people are being hothoused together with partners, perhaps their kids having to homeschool them, and some people have been made redundant. They've lost their businesses, they've lost their income, they don't know how long it's going on for. It's very, very scary, very, very uncertain times, and it's a loss of control at the end of the day. I think the number one thing is the loss of control that people have. So a lot of people are talking about that, how they're feeling, how they're coping. And I think one of the things I say to people is it's okay to have a meltdown. Everybody's having meltdowns. Share it, talk it through, keep close relationships with people, and use the Zoom and the Skype and the different things that are open to us. I think another tip is to ration your time online. I think social media is fantastic. We can share a lot of fabulous advice. We can share a lot of jokes and humor, and Brits are phenomenal with their humor and their dry sense, and they're sometimes a little bit disrespectful or inappropriate even. But those things can break a mood and help people feel a lot more able to laugh and see the dark side and come out the other side. But if you find, and some people are doing this, that you're constantly drip feeding the news, drip feeding the statistics, drip feeding all the negative stuff into your mind, into your home, into your psyche, that is very, very negative. And so the one thing I was thinking I might mention today is the impact this is having on our sleep and our dreams. So, you know, I did a piece of radio last week about people having weird dreams, and a lot of people are talking about their disturbed sleep. They're either sleeping too long, or they're waking up and they're having weird, crazy dreams. And so I think the thing with a lot of this is that we have to start taking a little bit of control, reel it all back in. Try to get a new routine of some description. Try to get something that is giving you a sense of order, giving you a sense of control back, and helping you feel a little bit more positive about what's going on in your life. So a regular routine, getting up in the morning and showering and putting decent clothes on, and having meals, sensible, healthy meals throughout the day, keeping in touch with your fruit, your veg, keeping hydrated, but having some order so that you are putting your clothes on, because otherwise we can end up, it gets to midday, we're saying is breakfast and lunch one meal or two? So we're eating a load of rubbish altogether, and then we're thinking, well, it's mid-afternoon, I might as well stay in my PJs. What's the point? So getting some order in our lives so that we don't just feel random, out of control. We're not really, yes, absolutely. I'm sure it's the first time people are putting shoes on for a while, or their lipstick or whatever it might be, or brushing their hair. So the whole thing about this is trying to get some normality back, because if we are ending up at the mercy of our what if scenario that we're playing in our minds, we can end up running ragged and going to bed at some either dead early or staying up ridiculously late, or we're starting that first gin and tonic at 12 o'clock, then 11 o'clock and whatever. And it's kind of just saying, I need to have some order in my life. I need to start getting some control back and building in achievements every day. So, but even if it's a little thing, you sorted the sock drawer out, you washed your cutlery and put it all back in the proper place, you did that cupboard under the stairs or something, or whatever it might be, but something every day that you feel you've achieved, you feel good about, you can actually say to yourself, it wasn't just a waste of time, because otherwise we can end up still struggling to know what day it is, still struggling to know where we are, still struggling to be feeling good about ourselves at all. And an awful lot of this is about getting some more, controlling the things you can control, managing the stuff you can control, having some order. Thing with kids, I mean, there's tips about on my website about this. Thing with kids, I say, is don't let them just take over your life. Yes, put the exercise classes on in the morning, get them doing crafts, get them doing a bit of gardening, and make sure you try to build yourself in some time every day for yourself. Don't allow them just to run you ragged. So try and build in half an hour where you go and read a book in another room, or you have a relaxing bath, or you go for a bit of a walk if you've got somebody else to take care of them. But allow yourself some time out and give yourself some structure so that you're not just running as a rabbit in the headlights and not really sure what you're actually doing with yourself. So a lot of these tips are on my website, lifestyletherapy.net. Free to access, about tips for sleeping, tips for keeping control throughout this time. But, I hope some of those things maybe helped you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Susan. That was really great, actually. And obviously what you've just been talking about resonates with so many people, from weird dreams to showering. We're now finding out what people are wearing, or shoes or flip-flops and all things, people with kids. So thank you for everyone's comments. They kept me quite amused while doing that. And actually, I'm glad we finished on a positive there with Susan. Now, just a little bit. We've literally hit 10 o'clock, but I do want to come up with the final word. So I'm going to put it up here. And hopefully you can all see this. Obviously, tough times never last, but tough people do. So Robert H. Schuller, who is an American televangelist, pastor, motivational speaker, and I just like that saying, a little bit of a positive to end on. So remember, we will get through this, and meetings like this just bring everyone together. So I will go back here and unspotlight myself. And basically, as we've hit the 10 o'clock mark, thank everybody for joining us today. So I hope you've really enjoyed it.